Multiple witnesses are now confirming a second shooter that was involved in the failed assassination attempt of former President Donald Trump. Now, I think it's pretty easy to assume that this is a conspiracy theory until we see the footage. Now, what's also alarming is that it's not just a few people who confirm this information. At this point, 10 witnesses have reported about this mystery shooter at the top of the water tower. Now, the video, though, isn't as clear as we want it to be, but it's clear enough to indicate that somebody was there. Now, of course, mainstream media is quick to dub this as nothing more than a conspiracy theory. That's what they typically do. So this could be due to the fact that the narrative is being focused primarily on a sole shooter. That would be Thomas Matthew Crooks. But as you guys have seen, there is a very distinct figure that can be seen at the top of the water tower that moves as the shots go off. Now, it's kind of hard to comprehend what it could be, but I think it's pretty clear that it's something of size. And it's not small at all, because even from far away, its silhouette, it's still clearly visible. Despite these claims, we still are being told not to think too much about it. But what's really standing out here, besides the possible shooter, is the clear disregard of safety protocols. Multiple witnesses have come forward to say that they warned local police about Crooks on the roof. Some say that they told police officers numerous times to check what's happening, only for them to be ignored and for the shooter to gain access to the sloped roof.
I was at the same point that probably the witness you were talking to earlier. I was up at the fence line. Saw the guy move from roof to roof, told an officer that he was on the roof. The officer come looking, I went back to where heard that there was somebody that could see the person, so I went back to where they were standing, saw the person, went back and told the officer again that if he goes back to that particular spot, he can see the person, figuring that he would go on radio. And when I turned around to go back to where I was is when the gunshots started, and then it was just chaos, and we all came running away, and that was that.
So let me get this right. So you actually saw the man on top of the roof behind us?
Yes.
And you're saying people reported that to law enforcement, saying there is a man on the roof of the building?
Yes, there were two officers that were actively searching. You could tell they were searching and looking for somebody, and we just tried to help and tell them where the guy was. And they, at some point, somebody obviously found him, or the snipers found him, and that was the end of his decisions.
Did you get a good look at the guy on the roof?
I did not have a good look at him, but I just seen him going from one building to another. There was a little gap in between, and he went. And when I went back to see the people that I heard that could see him, seen a quick look at him there, and then went to the officer to tell the officer, and that was all that I got.
How many gunshots did you hear?
I have no idea. It was, at first I didn't know what I heard, and then once it became clear what I heard, that it was just getting out of there, and I helped a lady that had a 4-year-old kid, helped them get out, and that was it. We were done, and everybody went home.
Not only were multiple witnesses calling on the attention of the police, but Senator Mike Lee of Utah wrote on social media that Crooks was a suspicious individual 19 minutes before the shooting. And remember that numerous witnesses were telling law enforcement officers about this guy and pointing him out? Yeah, well, they're telling us that within 19 minutes, they couldn't find him. I want you guys to think about that for a second, okay? For 19 minutes, they couldn't find him. Now, you have a former president of the United States of America in a very, very vulnerable position, one that could become the 47th president of our country. And you know that there's a possibility of a threat to his safety, a threat to his life, and yet you let him on stage. Now, what's more, an unclassified briefing recently revealed that the alleged shooter was identified as a person of interest 62 minutes before the shooting. Now, it's also been revealed to us that 10 minutes before Donald Trump went on stage, Crooks's description was already elevated with him being identified as a threat. Now, you gotta wonder, why wasn't Trump's team informed of this update? because initially Crooks was tagged as a suspicious individual. Now, with so much time before Donald Trump had to get on stage, why didn't they just kind of like pause or even call off the rally to get the president to safety? This is one of the biggest concerns being raised right now to the director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle. And it's one that's being talked about by the likes of Douglas Murray. He's an author and conservative political commentator. In an interview, Douglas Murray blasted the leadership of the Secret Service for forcing in DEI hires. He says that the Secret Service doesn't need 30% women as mandated to them. What they need is 100% of the best. Because the scenario that happened with Donald Trump is being seen across the globe as an embarrassment to the Secret Service. They used to be respected, but the performance that we've seen, it's literally just kind of thrown egg in their face.
Oh, I think there are huge questions to answer, and the Secret Service and its leadership has to answer them. I mean, everything like this will be analyzed probably for years to come. Who knew what, when, and so on. And almost immediately, you get feverish conspiracy theories from all sides about it. And those have to be dampened down by being answered. I think people should know what exactly went wrong here, how it went so wrong. I mean, it's easy to be, literally an armchair pundit on this occasion, opining on what they should have done better. And it's always very easy in hindsight. However, obviously, this is a catastrophic failure by the Secret Service. This gunman, as the days have gone on, it's become clearer and clearer that he was spotted by members of the crowd. Now we know that the Secret Service were made aware that he was a threat. Now we know that the policeman got onto the roof and saw him and was pointed down by the gunman. Now we know that the head of the Secret Service, the director of the Secret Service, says that one reason why snipers weren't put on that roof was because it was a slopey roof and therefore presented a health danger, which is bewildering to many of us. I'm sure she has a good explanation for why it would have been so dangerous to have had another sniper on another slopey roof, and that's more important to protect the health and safety than the possibility of having a former president's head blown off on live television. I'm sure she'll answer that, but so far she's done rather badly in that regard. The Secret Service needs to have the trust not just of the people it protects, but of the American people. And it's going to have to do an awful lot in the days and weeks ahead to regain that trust.
Which now brings me to another security fumble that has recently been made during the rally, or at least been recently observed. Now, I managed to get a list of prohibited items for this specific rally. Besides the obvious like alcoholic beverages, drones, explosives, firearms, and other weapons, the list cites an important item. The event had restrictions on the bags that could be brought in by those who were attending. Smaller sized bags were allowed inside the rally, which makes you question how a guy brought a big rifle and a backpack in with no pushback at all. Like how? How in the world? Unless someone let him in. Which leads many people to question whether the specific building where Thomas Crooks camped in was specifically removed from the security bubble for the former president. Although the inclusion of a possible shooter from the water tower also raises even more questions. Was Crooks supposed to be noticed by the people who attended the rally so as to avoid the suspicion from the other shooter? You know what I mean? Like kind of like a bait and switch, or, don't pay any attention to the guy behind the curtain, that kind of thing, right? All of this has led to multiple senators calling on Cheadle to resign from her post. Senator John Barrasso, together with Senators Marsha Blackburn, James Lankford, and Kevin Cramer, chased the Secret Service director in Fiserv Forum in order to grill her about the Pennsylvania incident. So Barrasso told Cheadle to her face, either you resign tonight or start answering our questions right now about the death threat to President Donald Trump. Cheadle argued that this wasn't the place or the time to answer these questions, but that she should answer them in a proper forum. But what do you guys think about this? Do you agree with these senators? Should she resign from her office for this insanely dangerous situation that they put former President Donald Trump in? This kind of reminds me that I did a previous video where I detailed the excuses brought up by the Secret Service director. Now, guys, be sure to check that video out because I also have a report from Dan Bongino that exposes what happened exactly behind the scenes between local law enforcement and the Secret Service. Now, as always, guys, I want to thank you all so much for being here. Thank you for hitting the like.
Recognize Mr. Waltz from Florida.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Madam Director, please, I'd like to direct your attention to this video.
And I sincerely appreciate the clarity on this.
Can we turn up the volume,
I
staff?
just want to ask you, because this has popped up Republican Congressman Mike Walls, he said on social media on Saturday, and I'm going to read this for you because it does talk about you, Secretary. I have very reliable sources telling me that there have been repeated requests for stronger Secret Service protection for President Trump denied by Secretary Mayorkas. Your department has already pushed back on that, calling that absolutely false, but he is putting this on you. Can you respond to that, please?
Well, that's a baseless and irresponsible statement, and is one that is unequivocally false.
Director Cheadle, did you speak with your boss, Secretary Mayorkas? You fall under DHS. Did you speak with him on the 14th, the day after?
Yes, I did.
So you spoke with him before he made that statement.
I spoke with him immediately following the incident.
Did you inform him that all requests for additional resources for President Trump had been fulfilled? Or that it was false to say they had been denied?
I informed him that the request for that rally that day had been fulfilled.
Okay, you continue to answer that very carefully, because I made a broader statement. The agents that came to me made a broader statement that his permanent protective detail for years now have been asking for more. Is that correct?
I do not have specific incidents of those requests.
Is it correct that they've been asking for more?
I have heard the same reports that you have. Without having them in front of me, I am unable.
Those requests are made in writing. I mean, the agents are telling me they make them in writing. This isn't a verbal agency. Things are made in writing.
I understand what you're saying. I don't have those requests in front of me here.
I'm not asking if you have them in front of you. Are you aware that they were made?
As I said earlier, there are times when requests are made, and depending on the availability of assets, or if there is a way that
So there were times when they were denied.
if there is a way that vulnerability can be mitigated in a different way, then that is why
So there are times when they were denied for a variety of reasons.
That is why the Secret Service has a multi-layered and multifaceted security plan, so that we can pivot if
So
we need to.
in the wake, in the immediate 48 hours of an assassination attempt on a former president, could be the next leader of the free world, almost had his head blown off, your boss says that's irresponsible and false to say things are denied. And you had talked to him. So did he just make that on his own, make that up on his own? Or did you tell him that?
We were speaking about the requests made at the rally.
Staff, can we show the next slide, please? Then we have your.
Oh, she's about to bury herself right here, guys. Let me know if you guys think Cheadle, Director Cheadle is about to get herself buried right here.
Spokesman, did you sign off on this statement? That there's an assertion that a member of the former president's team requested additional security resources and those were rebuffed? This is absolutely false. In fact, we added protective resources and technology and capability as part of the increased campaign travel tempo. But next slide, please. Next slide, please, staff. We have the Washington Post article that then says we now have senior Secret Service officials saying there were at times when it was denied. So which is it?
Again, there have been a number of conversations going on here.
Did you sign off on that spokesman's statement?
The spokesman's statement, I
can't be
believe, was
both.
related to requests that were made.
Did
for
you
the
sign
rally.
off on it?
For the requests that were made at the rally.
Did you
Yes.
sign off on the statement before it went out? I sign off on my press spokesman's statement before they go out. I would hope you would in the wake of an assassination attempt.
Yes.
You did.
Mhm.
Categorically false that any requests were made. You signed off on it. Thank you for that. Thank you for that clarity. Madam Director, how many press conferences have you held since the assassination attempt?
We have put out press releases.
How many press conferences have you held? Gone to the mic, taken questions from the public, from the media? How many?
I have not held any.
How many has Secretary Mayorkas held?
I don't.
0. How many has the FBI held? 0. How many has the Department of Justice held? I know you know the answer.
I believe there was a press conference in Butler after the incident occurred?
By local law enforcement, not by you and not by the Department of Homeland Security. So this is how misinformation flies. I mean, in the darkness, in the absence of information. Now we have 9 days later before a congressional committee, we all represent almost 1 million people, and you still don't have answers. Are you aware that national news anchors are saying this was a hoax? On national television, they're saying, no, the president wasn't shot, it was flying glass. Are you aware of that?
I have not heard those reports.
Are you aware that, I mean, there are rumors rampant online that there were multiple shooters?
Yes.
Are you aware that because the shooter had overseas encrypted platforms in Belgium and New Zealand and in Germany, that a lot of people are speculating there could have been foreign involvement, logically? Are you aware of that?
Yes.
And have you done anything to disabuse any of these notions today? No, you haven't. Madam Director, I would fire you regardless of the failure. I would fire you just how you've handled it since. You should have been the first to the mics.
Wow.
To say, America, world, I want to assure you we're going to get to the bottom of this. I want to assure you full transparency. Our agency clearly had major gaps here, and I want to personally take responsibility and accountability. You should have been the first, standing alongside Secretary Mayorkas. And I would even go so far as to say have daily press conferences, updating everyone on what we know. But you haven't had any of that. What are you hiding behind?
I am not hiding.
Because you're making the situation worse. I think you've heard that on a bipartisan basis here. You are making this situation far worse in the absence of information. Let's move on. This is truly astounding. I want to be clear.
What do you guys think? Is Director Kimberly Cheadle a part of this thing? Is she covering something up? Is there some foreign intelligence involved with this Donald Trump assassination attempt, this failed assassination attempt? How many shooters are involved? Initially, we were told right out the gate it was one shooter. They hurried up and said, oh, it's one shooter. We got him. No worries. Then we heard that there was a second shooter. Oh, there was another shooter on the water tower. Now it's like we don't really know how many shooters there are. There are rumors coming out that there are 3 shooters. There may be a 4th shooter. There have been encrypted intelligence identified that they're now trying to get down to the bottom of. I mean, what is going on here? First, we were led to believe that it was only Thomas Crooks, but it looks like there's a lot more information yet to be shared with the American people here, guys.
Clear, because you keep dodging the issue. Has President Trump's permanent protective detail requested additional assets over the last few years? He is clearly not your average former president. He's not Jimmy Carter in an old folks home. He's not President Bush painting out in his barn. He has multiple residences, a lot of rallies. He's very publicly engaged, and he has a foreign threat in addition to domestic threats. Have they requested additional resources?
That's the last question, but please feel free to
Thank you,
Director.
Thank you. We have continued, as I stated earlier, to increase over the past year the assets that are at the former president's residence and supplied to his detail.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask for one more indulgence. It is clear you have not been to Butler, Pennsylvania. Leaders lead and should be on the ground. You have not been there. Instead, you went to the RNC, but you weren't originally even going to go there. Where were you originally scheduled to go besides the RNC, a national special security event?
I was always scheduled to go to the
Mr. Chairman, I would like to enter into the record that the director was scheduled to go to Aspen, hobnobbing around with, I don't know what liberal elites go to Aspen. That was where you were originally scheduled to go to speak at a forum.
He said
I
hobnobbing.
was scheduled to go to the RNC. I was going to leave the RNC for 24 hours and return back to the RNC.
I hope, as your predecessor, Julie Pearson, with a security incident on the White House and under the Obama administration and Reagan's Secret Service detail lead, I would hope you would have the dignity for the sake of the agents in the service to resign.
Well, folks, I think the truth is finally starting to come out. A lot of people are calling this a cover-up, that this was a setup from the very beginning. Some people are pointing the finger at the director of the CIA, the director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle. We're hearing that there's anywhere from 1, 2, 3, possibly 4 shooters. At this point, there may have been some foreign intelligence involved in this failed assassination attempt on Donald Trump. But at the end of the day, a lot of folks at this point are now calling for Kimberly Cheadle to resign. If you happen to think that Kimberly Cheadle should resign and that she should have been way more transparent, just type in resignation or resign in the comment section down below. Appreciate it, Maria Carey. You are awesome. Appreciate you. Thank you for the compliment. But yeah, a lot of folks are saying that the simple fact of the matter that the initial shooter, Thomas Crooks, being able to get a ladder. Number one, he was able to scope the site with a rangefinder. He was questioned. He was identified as being a suspicious character, yet he still was allowed to roam around with a rangefinder. Then he somehow smuggled a ladder into the outer perimeter of the rally grounds, leaned this ladder on top of the very building that local police were using to kind of like camp out and attempt to protect President or former President Donald Trump in, then was able to climb on top of the ladder with a rifle, a long barrel rifle, bear crawl into position while being in the direct line of sight on a very minorly sloped roof with a rifle, gets off 4, 5, maybe 6 shots before being taken down. And we're being told immediately, we were initially being told immediately that he was the only shooter. Let me know if you guys think that this is a cover-up. I'm sorry. There's just way too much. There are way more questions that are coming up than we're getting answers for. So anyway, guys, if you haven't already, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. We are going to get down to the bottom of this. I promise you that. We're going to stay on top of this. Make sure you have notifications turned on so you will be aware of whenever I bring breaking news. But I promise you guys, there's a lot more coming. Anyway, thank you so much for supporting, and I'll see you on the next one.